You're watching Teng Tools Muscle Garage, the home of New Zealand's toughest muscle cars, hot rods and street machines. Proudly brought to you by Teng Tools in association with Mount Shop, Maguire's and Niedercar. Coming up, Tararua Rodder's epic chrome and custom show from the bright lights of Levin and Mark Coffey's car phase, one that's only been going since he left school. But first up, thanks to Niedercar, we're getting in early, celebrating 20 years of elite Waikato workshop Matamata Panelworks.
Yeah, it's a great milestone. Remember the day very clear when we started out, the 14th of April 2000, so that'll be 20 years next April. It might be an open day and a few little cold beers afterwards.
20 years in business is no small feat in itself. But what Matamata Panelworks have achieved in that time is truly special, with a string of cars not just impressive for New Zealand, but genuinely of a standard that's on par with the world's best.
Hugely proud of it, but not only are we lifting the bar, the whole country are. How often do you hear of cars getting built in New Zealand that are equivalent to cars from SEMA and around the world? Hey, we're just a part of that and a part of everybody in New Zealand with passion of cars.
Malcolm and his team are no doubt best known for their Mustangs, including the wild all-steel Eleanors. But in truth, they turn their hand to far more than just Ford's iconic pony car. We've had the pleasure of pointing our lens at a fair few of them over the years too.
Back in those 60s and 70s, this got so much style and even the colours. But I don't know, it's just a good old muscle car that sits low to the ground. It's got that nice stance and that good old V8 sound. I don't really care what brand it is, as long as it looks good and at the end of the day everybody's happy with it. We're only as good as what the customer allows us to do on their car and give us the opportunity to do our best. Yes, there's a lot of ideas in this head and our guys' head on the floor, but it's the customer letting us do that. These guys that have got the money to spend on cars, they're not everywhere. So we're fortunate that we've got a good name, we're building on that name, and we get the opportunity to do it.
A truly world-class car isn't just the panels, it's the full package. Sure, these ponies might be show-worthy, but they're no show ponies. Plentiful but drivable horsepower is high on the agenda, with suspension and braking components to complement. But the easiest way to distinguish a Matamata Panelworks creation is perhaps at the stage you see here. Steel. It's everywhere, to the point where covering it with paint almost seems a shame.
Fraser was one of them. He wanted his car left in bare steel for a while. We strive to push the steel to its limits. A lot of the jobs that you'll see here today have got that. We're pushing it to the limits. But yeah, it's great to see the bare steel and none of that fiberglass stuff.
And of course, we can't keep rattling on about where they've been for the last 20 years without a glimpse of where they're going. The good news? There's zero sign of slowing and the full-on builds roll on, like this 67 XR Falcon, on steroids.
What's a little bit different about this one is that it's actually over a 2018 Falcon. So we've cut all the back guards, the outer sills, lifted all that off. Then we cut the floor pan out of the 67, banged that over top. This one, we're privileged to have that one through from Isaac Performance. It's actually got a Ford Race Coyote 5-litre engine in there. This one here's got that real tough look, and the reason for that is the footprint of the 2018 Falcon is a little bit wider, a little bit longer. To get that 60s look back into it, we had to have that mag, that little bit of outer lip that makes it look right. So by doing that on this one, we then had to flare the guards and push it out to do it. And that didn't come straightforward. That wasn't easy to do. It's still to try and get the car to look right.
The steel everywhere approach doesn't stop when the door's shut. Inside the Falcon is where 1967 and 2018 gel.
Once the steering wheel goes in place and we make some shrouds, it won't sort of stand out too much like it is at the moment. But you'll see the gauges here in place, the centre console. Centre console is pretty much like a factory one. We're just giving it that sort of a modern look, and obviously to the shape of what we've got here with the floor pan. We'll have a hood lining glued to the roof, and we've made all these trims. So this is all going to be wrapped in leather. We've flush mounted the rear and front screen, so those trims will finish that edge off real nice. It'll look quite grouse inside here.
This 70 is a bit of a shop favourite. Matamata Panelworks custom touches are everywhere, as we've come to expect, but this Mustang's unique and aggressive nose comes courtesy of a water jet cut alloy grille and the now functional air intakes.
This one here, it's got a bit of a nickname. Those of you out there that know your Alien movie, you'll see why it's called the Predator. So obviously a little bit of bare steel in there. You'll see the intake for the air. On the outside of the 70 Mustang, there's it's sort of a blanked off bit of plastic, but we're going to make that operational on this one. The air will come in. You're looking at a Roush 427 in there. It's sort of about 600 horsepower. And we've got total control suspension on this one. So it sits real nice and low. It's got a real nice stance, and that sort of goes with everything else that's going on in the car.
Both the Mustang and Falcon then make worthy cars to continue Matamata Panelworks' impressive legacy. But stay tuned, because there's a few big things in store for Waikato's quiet overachievers. First things first though, and the small matter of a 20th birthday to celebrate in 2020.
20 years, 16 cover cars, and those of you who remember the Fold-In, I think that's in one of the Penthouse magazines or something like that, so we can even claim fame in there. But hey, it's hugely proud to be a part of here and standing here. But I'll always go back to the old saying is, you know, as soon as you think you're somebody, you're nobody. So it's a bit of a saying we have here, and that's why we just try to put out the best we can.
Right, thanks to the nice folk at Maguire's, we're road tripping to Levin for Tararua Rodder's biennial Chrome and Custom Show.
This is Tararua Rodder's Chrome and Custom Show. We run it every 2 years. Over the years, the show has developed into one of the must-do events in the lower North Island. We have a really good selection of cars here today. Some of the highest level of cars that we've got in the country. That sort of morphed from a bit of a park up down on the main street into a fully fledged show over the last sort of 10 or 12 years.
Tararua Rodder's Chrome and Custom now calls the Levin Showgrounds its home, and it takes up a fair chunk of the real estate too. Large indoor halls house the pre-registered show vehicles, while outside there's quite the mix going on. From competition vehicles, including dragsters, off-road and speedway sprinters, to live music and food. The adjacent fields set the scene for an impressive and ever-changing car show in its own right. A couple of hours in, and the place was packed.
They might not be car people, but they come and they're works of art. And people see it like for that. We have interactive displays outside where we've got a big truck up on a hoist and there's drag cars and they do fire-ups, and we have all sorts of different things happening. And it also gives our club an opportunity to give back to the community, because we make a large donation to local charitable causes after the show with some of the proceeds from our show.
But perhaps the best reason to be there was the simple fact that despite not being in one of the big centres, Tararua Rodders have built up one heck of a car show here with a very impressive calibre of vehicle on display. Chip Foose might have hand-picked the 59 Skyliner for his stand at the CRC Speed Show, but that didn't stop Ian Neary driving the Ford all the way from Auckland. That effort saw Ian take the Long Distance Award and place second overall, while Best in Show went to Bob Neville's 28 Model A Ford Boat Tail Racer, one very cool roadster that seems to get more immaculate and detailed every time we see it. Paul Bailey's stunning Challenger is a regular jaw-dropper and took Best Mopar and Best Upholstery, while Danny Nielsen's beautiful 34 Ford Coupe was brand spanking new and took Top Ford. And we'll be back to check out a few more of the standouts after the break.
amazing results, even at full sight.
You're back with Teng Tools Muscle Garage. Right, thanks to Maguire's, we're back at Tararua Rodder's indoor-outdoor epic, Chrome and Custom. Levin's big show punches well beyond its weight, attracting a serious standard of vehicle to its show halls, while those who braved the spring showers were well rewarded with a car park chock full of comp cars and cool cruisers. While plenty would love to see Chrome and Custom as an annual fixture, Tararua Rodders have a strong motive for its biennial staging.
It keeps it fresh. It allows us to showcase new cars, new builds, new imports. We've got cars here that have only been just imported into the country within a month and they're here at our show. We've got some people that have built cars and they've actually purposely had them finished for our show.
One of those people was one of Tararua Rodder's own, Shane Pratt, in his beautiful caddy-powered Model A coupe.
Yeah, it doesn't seem real, really. I walked in here before thinking, oh, is that really, our car, But it's quite a good feeling to see it out and about and not just be a sculpture in the shed anymore, it's actually a car. It started off as a 29 sports coupe body, actually. I started off building a chassis for that. This body came up from a friend, Brian Kilsby, who had it sitting in a barn. I built him a chassis for his project as a part payment for the coupe body.
The 1930 coupe body has been chopped 3 inches and channeled 2 over a 32 chassis. While a detailed 365 Cadillac sits up front, most of the mechanicals remain all Model A. This owner-built car is a great example of a period or traditionally styled hot rod.
I want to try and build something late 50s. Some of the aspects of it are a bit earlier, more like a 40s hot rod that's been upgraded in the 50s with a later power plant, really, because all the running gear's earlier stuff. It's its first show and it's really first outing. I've had several deadlines over the times and haven't made them, so I'm always a bit wary of deadlines, but they're really good for getting you motivated. So the fact that the show's only every 2 years and having it here, it was important. I've been a member of the club for 32 years, so it's good to be part of this.
We're not sure what was more scary, the display or the sheer amount of hours Graham Espiner has poured into his HQ ute. The Holden was at this show 2 years prior, but in unfinished form. Graham reluctantly scored himself the hard luck trophy, thanks to a combo of remote door poppers and the keys left sitting in the cabin. This year's award was much more fitting of the seriously slick HQ. Best pickup.
It's a 73 Holden Belmont ute. Bought in Western Australia out at Kalgoorlie. It was on the side of the road for ages and saw it and offered the guy cash price. It was back in 2012. Been in work of labour. Brought it back to New Zealand in 2016. Still been in work of labour. Plenty of money, a few sleepless nights, a few headaches. I'm sure there's gremlins in it somewhere. Got out of hand. I brought it just as a cruiser. It had an oil leak. I pulled the front off to get to the main seal for an oil leak. Oil leak turned into a rebuild. 14 months on a rotisserie, chassis off the body, you name it, it's had it. I'm really wrapped the way it's come out. I've done it all myself. Just haven't done the upholstery or the airbrushing on it. It's the only thing I haven't done. Probably from a young age, I've always wanted a show car, so it's always in the back of my mind, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it once, do it properly. I've had various cars over the years. I've spent a lot of money on it, obviously, the way it looks, but I'm wrapped the way it's come out. Put pencil to paper, think about it. That's where it just started. As I was going, I thought, I can do this, because I could do it, I thought about it, and I had advice from different people. But what you want, you can achieve. You can get it. Just don't say, can't do it, it's too hard.
If you didn't make it this year, you missed out. Be sure to keep an ear out for Tararua Rodder's Chrome and Custom, which rolls back into Levin in 2021. even if that means venturing out of the big smoke for some small-town hospitality.
Levin's a sleepy little hollow. We've taken a bit of stick over the years, but of course, when this show comes to town, I mean, we put the Levin on the map. And I mean, it's good for small towns to be able to run an event of this size and stand proud.
Right, we're shed raiding thanks to our mates at Mount Shop. This week, we gate crashed the cool collection of Wellington's Mark Coffey.
Yeah, started getting into V8s anyway when I was about 17, which wasn't that long ago. Straight out of school, really. Bit the bug from an uncle of mine who owned an auto wrecking yard in Upper Hutt. So I spent the school holidays working in the auto wrecking yard and sort of didn't really have much chance, really got led astray. I call it glorified model making, really. It's I just think it was just taking it up another scale. Like, as much as I've always been into cars, I've never been into buying the finished product. I've just liked the journey. Like, pretty much all the cars I've got started as wrecks. Something about taking an old beaten up car and turning it into the finished product, I think it's just, don't know why it's appealed to me, but just, I like the journey, if you like, even though it costs you more than buying the thing finished. None of the cars that I've actually got I set out to get. It was just kind of ones that I came across or happened to fall in love with. The only one I really set out to own was the HQ Holden, the mustard colour one, purely out of nostalgia. It was a clone of what I learned to drive in and what I set my driver's licence in. My dad had a 75 HQ Kingswood. Even though I've owned a hell of a lot of them over the years, I particularly wanted that colour if I could find one. I think we all want what we remember growing up, and today's kids will want the Evos or whatever, or Suzuki Swifts. I think it is just reliving your youth or things you couldn't afford when you were young and poor.
Formerly a toolmaker for a 9-to-5, Mark's not been one to restrict himself to spinning spanners on just the one brand. The workshop is home to all of Detroit's Big Three, and apart from one star-spangled exception, he's a fan of keeping cars looking very much like they did when they left the factory, even when in some cases that's a bit of a stretch.
I went to great pains to keep that as a sleeper and retain a vintage car look. I've got nothing against chops and everything, they look quite cool, but there's something about the factory lines that I like.
The 34, in fact, has been one of the longest under Mark's ownership, a slow burn of a project. It was a house move, and with it the loss of a big garage that would shift the 34 build into top gear. With a rowdy big block Chev already in place, Ed Jr.'s, a well-known Hutt workshop at the time, was tasked with seeing the sedan over the line.
They said, how far do you want to go with it? And I said, I want to drive it out of here. So 9 months later I drove it out, with a different engine, and different everything really. So ended up with a 572 big block on nitrous, and yeah, it's been on the road ever since.
Already 10-second quarter-mile proven, the Crate 572 has had a freshen up since though, and should be good for 700 to 800 horses off the bottle, which you wouldn't know by looking at it.
Yeah, the roll cage bolts in and out. It's still wooden framed, so there's no seatbelt. It's originally registered pre-55, so it is registered on the road legally with no seatbelts. Not that it's that confidence inspiring, but I have to have the cage in it to be able to race it. So when the cage is gone and the back seat's put back in and the wire wheels on it, you'd have to know your 34s pretty damn well to not pick it up as a vintage. The only giveaway from the outside is the roof's been filled. They originally had a canvas filled top, but other than that, it's pretty factory.
Not so much of a sleeper is the 57 Chevy, in part thanks to a hand-painted finish courtesy of Kurt Gooden. A bit of artistic license sees a few extra stars added to take the total to a fitting 57. Oh, and the blower poking through the hood is a bit of a giveaway too.
A mate of mine, Danny Thompson, who's often jumping backwards and forwards from the States, is always bringing cars back in, sent me a photo of a 57 he'd found, which was a running, driving 4-speed. It was worth a punt, and I had an intention of just making it go, matte blacking it and having it as a fun skid car. It arrived, found it was pretty rusty, and then decided I'd cut my losses on it, sold it for $1,500 less than it owed me. At the same time as another chap bought in this particular 57, which was more rusty, but for the equivalent cost, I had all the patch panels, mini-tubbed it, and I was back to where I started from, but with a much better car.
The Chev has seen a few engine combos as it's worked its way up to this one. a blown Dart 415 with alloy heads, a package that was good for just shy of 600 horses to the wheels on its lazy running tune. Mark won't find himself short of stuff to go on with from here either, with another HQ, one deemed suitable for modifying, and in the corner, the familiar silhouette of the iconic Charger, the Dodge being ready to meet its new motivation in the form of a late model 392 Hemi.
Yeah, I said to somebody the other day, if I finish work tomorrow, I'd probably have a couple of years between the maintenance that seems to be always going with these cars and a couple of projects that I've still yet to finish, so there's no shortage of things to keep me going. Yeah, it's not something that I've grown out of yet. I'm still waiting. I'm sort of running out of time to grow out of it now.
Your ride needs some love? We've got you sorted. Thanks to our mates at Maguire's, we have this massive complete car care pack worth $700 to give away, plus a $500 mount shop voucher to keep the underside shipshape too. And to top it off, a 1-year subscription to NZ V8 magazine. To enter, simply head to themotorhood.com and hit the Teng Tools Muscle Garage link. And while you're there, make sure you get your name in the draw for NZ V8's massive Summer Nats 2020 experience. The prize includes return flights for you and a mate, 4 nights accommodation, and of course, platinum passes to this Aussie event that's like no other. What are you waiting for? Teng Tools Muscle Garage was proudly brought to you by Teng Tools. Get organised. Mount Shop, undercar specialists. Maguire's, people who love cars love Maguire's. And Need a Car, the easy way to research and buy cars online.